Hello, everybody, and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Houston Data Dive Show. We have a lot to get into, so I don't want to make the intro too long. Remember that my links, or the links to my social media, are in the description below, as well as the email to contact me if you want to be added to the distribution list of the bonus content that I'm going to start putting out next week. So you're going to want to sign up for that. And then chat is open tonight. I really want to hear from you all tonight, as I do every night. But I've been trying to do as much research as possible today, making a mixed condition model. And I'm interested to hear what you all think is going to play here at Memorial Park. I've been kind of on the fence on a few things, so I want to run some stuff by you, see what you think. So jump in the chat. Or in the comments below, if you don't catch the show live, let me know what you're thinking. And then, as always, all statistics provided by FantasyNational.com. It's an amazing resource. Go check them out. It is well worth the investment. The biggest thing is, remember to reach out to me at the email in the description. So without any further delay, let's dig into the data for the 2022 Houston. And we're going to move on over here. Let the camera get focused in. There we go. This is this year's tournament fact sheet. Came out earlier today. Let me bring up chat. The only notable difference that I have seen, I believe, is the yardage is slightly less than last night's. But having said that, it's still over 7,400 yards. The sentiment's the same from last night. It's a long course. It's going to be a difficult course. The same length of cut on the greens. Bermuda, still the average green size is the same, 7,000. Same number of holes with water in play, and so on and so forth. The only thing that I've noticed as well is this note here. It says, changes from last year's event include renovating the 9th green and eliminating 2 of the bunkers to add 750 square feet to the 2nd green. So the 2nd green is going to be a tad bit larger. Renovated the 9th green, but overall it didn't change the average square footage. Long course, par 70, it's going to be difficult. So I'm going to move off of this and bring up a tab that I normally do in the initial research show, and I just quite simply forgot last night. This is the tournament history. So it shows, who has played well at this event year over year. And I think one of the reasons I forgot is knowing that this tournament has moved to Memorial Park last year, and there wasn't a lot of data from last year, and 2020, 2019, 18, 17, 16, it doesn't matter. It's a new golf course. A lot of the players either didn't play it last year, or all of these strokes gained total, I don't want to say it's thrown out the window, but it's, for example, Ian Poulter here. He's got one tournament, so it looks like he plays this tournament well. Well, it was back in 2018 at a different golf course, so you kind of have to throw that out. But you can see, my guess is about half of the field has not played or did not play here last year, and the ones that did, with the exception of maybe Pat Perez here, their numbers are all combined with previous year's events. So that's probably the main reason I just kind of forgot to do it. But I wanted to make sure I brought this up because I do show this tab in Fantasy National every research show. Just take it with a little bit of grain of salt, considering, for example, Brooks Koepka tied for 5th and a cut, so that's kind of baking into this, average strokes gained. Sepp Straka looks like he plays this very well. He did play it well last year, but he also had a very good 2020. So, but anyway, so there's the tournament history. Now, we can take quite a bit from this 2021 column. So we might reference that here in a bit. Hey, Brian, good to see you again. How did you do last tourney? Shit. One word can sum it up. Shit. I had some pretty decent, bold calls, I'll say. I was on Brian Stewart, which ended up, doing fairly well. But, I faded Joaquin Niemann completely because I knew he was going to be chalky. I didn't use Carlos Ortiz. He was going to be chalky. He played well. I had zero. I never even considered Andrew Landry. So, while I had some pretty, decent, projections or calls or whatever, Patrick Rogers, I said, was a bit of fool's gold. He ended up missing the cut. Mito Pereira missed the cut. I said to avoid them. I also advocated using Harold Varner and Johnny Vegas and Shane Lowry, and they missed the cut. So it was one of those weeks where I had slightly enough, I had a combination of guys that did well, they just weren't on the same team. And you're going to have weeks like that. But it's good to see you again, Brian. As we get into the show, I'm actually going to really ask a lot about chat because I've been trying to make a mixed condition model today, and it's been kind of driving me nuts. But to finish off this this tab, again, we're going to take a little, we're going to take some from this 2021 column since it was played at this course last year. But there's not much else we can take from this column. But I'll leave it up just in case. So you can see here I was starting to fumble around with Fantasy National, and don't worry if you don't see any data. I am more so trying to find some comparison courses for you all. So one of the first things I did was I wanted to look at extremely long courses that are par 70s. Now, Memorial Park might play into the 7300s or something like that, but the sentiment is the same. Let's look at some long par 70 courses. And there's only a few, which is a good thing. Baltusrol, Bethpage Black, who's hosted several majors. Chambers Bay, the U.S. Open in 2015. Shinnecock Hills was 2018, I believe. But the biggest one here is PGA National. This is where the Honda is played every single year. So I'll bring up a spreadsheet that I kind of compiled earlier today that shows who plays well at the Honda for the past 3 or 4 years. Then I'll give us an idea of who generally plays that course well in regards to long courses, short course, tough course, and it's also Bermuda, which is also a very, it's almost a straight comparison. Bethpage, I believe, is bent grass. I know Chambers Bay is bent. But PGA National, where the Honda's played, is a straight comparison. Par 70 long in Bermuda. I'm going to take a couple of these filters off. Let's look at fast bent greens, fast and lightning bent greens, and see if we can gather a few courses this way. There's Austin Country Club, where the match play is played. You've got Country Club of Jackson, the Sanderson Farms, so that will be useful. East Lake is obviously the Tour Championship. Golf Club of Houston is where this tournament used to be played. Harbor Town, the RBC Heritage, PGA National again, Quail Hollow. Sedgefield is the Wyndham. TBC Sawgrass, the Players. Oh, gosh dang it. And Scottsdale out west. Let's see if any of these are considered long. these long Bermuda courses. Yep. So Country Club of Jackson, Bay Hill, PGA National, Quail Hollow. Okay. So there's an idea of some of the comparison courses that we can look at. We'll take a look at some prior leaderboards, see if there's any overlap. Again, I focused on PGA National because it was basically a straight comparison of Bermuda, par 70, long, and so on. So I'm going to bring off all these filters here, and let's start digging into a little bit of this data. And we saw last night that putting was so extremely important. At least it was last year at Memorial Park. Remember, we're in Houston, Texas for the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Houston Open at Memorial Park Golf Course. But just a quick refresher, a lot of what was winning last year was putting. Approach was second, but, I mean, you can't, numbers don't lie. It was putting, and more putting. For the winners, and then around the green for the winner, your defending champion Carlos Ortiz. But all putting was the name of the game last year. So with that being the case, the natural first thing to do is to look at who is good on these Bermuda greens. I'm going to go ahead and add the fast and lightning filter. They played fast last year. They've been lightning at times in the past, at least at the Golf Club of Houston. So, when we sort by, and let me see how many rounds we've got 24 here. Let's go down to 24. In the last 6 months, on fast and lightning Bermuda greens, the number one putter is Brandon Grace, then Denny McCarthy, Chesson Hadley, Nick Taylor, and Harry Higgs. Let me make sure, because this doesn't seem, I guess so. I thought this was a little bit different than earlier, but I could be just losing my mind. Very, very possible, because I've been at this computer all day. Yeah, 24. All right. So what I want to highlight here is we're definitely going to use the putting in the mixed condition model later, and I'll show you what I've got so far, and that's why I'm going to reach out to you all to see what you all think, because I'm not sold on a couple of things that I've got in there now. But anyway, normally we kind of want to focus on, the top of this here. These guys are the people you kind of want to target and such. But being that putting is so very important here at Memorial Park, or at least it has been in the past, I'm going to highlight somebody for you all. Let me highlight Brooks Koepka. And Brooks is somebody that never pops or, rates well in my data models. I mean, it says here he's, the Bermuda is his best surface. He's traditionally been a decent putter. Sorry, let me scroll down. There you go. He's just, having a bad go of it now. So why is he so low? He is ranked 98th out of 122. Why is he so low? Well, you can see here that there is consistency of some bad putting tournaments. -3, -1.5. He'll really lose some, -4.5. But I want you to pay attention to things here. When things are generally normal for Brooks, he's decent enough with the irons, which he hasn't been lately. And that's the thing is are the irons going to come back? I'm going to say that they are coming back in this example. He's always been great off the tee. He's generally field average around the green. But assuming the irons are at least average to the field, I want you to take a look at something that I've noticed. He only gains, he gains less than a half a stroke on the green. 5th. Gains 2.5. 4th at a major. Gains basically a half. 2nd at a major. Gains 6, top 2. gains at all. These aren't high numbers. He's just gaining it all on the green. First. Now he is missing the cut at the Farmers and the Amex, excuse me. The irons were so-so and they were terrible here. But you notice when he missed the cut at the Byron Nelson, he was bad with the irons, bad on the green. The Palmetto, he was okay with the irons, but bad on the green. But when you put things together like Brooks can, approach and putting, I mean even, good approach numbers, but slight putting, just slightly above tier, field average, he's top fiving. I want to highlight Brooks Koepka because this is the volatility in a resume, in a player that we like. The irons have been cold. Yes, that's a little worrisome. But you've also seen where he can just blitz a field with the irons. And this is the kind of field that it feels like Brooks can play well at. That there aren't the incredible ball strikers like a Colin Morikawa, like a Corey Connors. And even if they are like these majors, he's still top fiving. I'm highlighting Brooks Koepka because the numbers can be a bit deceiving. So Brooks is somebody that I'm really, really high on this week. And I'm fully aware, and I'm going to have to take solace in the fact that this could blow up in my face right here. Or Brooks comes out and in typical Brooks fashion, he just doesn't really care about this tournament since it's not a major. That's also a possibility. But anytime he has gained putting and gained with the irons, we're not talking make the cut, top 20 here and there. These are top fives in big tournaments. Minus fourth in the U.S. Open, second in the PGA, second in the WGC, which is an invitational field, wins the Waste Management last year. Seventh in the Fall Masters, although we don't have the, putting and the approach statistics. Even at this event last year at the Houston, he was fifth with some, pretty bad iron play. So he can putt these greens. I like Brooks a lot this week. I've already got an outright bet on him at a pretty ridiculous price for a Brooks Koepka. One that as soon as the odds came out this morning, I jumped on that very, very quickly because I figured they would go down. Brooks is somebody I wanted to highlight. Somebody else I want to highlight, if I can find him, is... Where did he go? Now I'm just going to have to type his name. Russell Henley. Russell Henley. Another similarity to Brooks. Look, Bermuda is by far his best surface. By far his best surface. And he wasn't terribly, terribly low on the leaderboard or ranking for putting, 58th. But Bermuda is by far his preferred putting surface. He has had a bad go of it late. Very bad go of it late. But the irons are always good. And I want you to take a look at some of these fields or these tournaments that he's been losing. Northern Trust, bent. BMW, I believe, is bent. I know the Shriners is bent. The CJ Cup is bent. But when he's gaining strokes, generally he's, got these, maybe not Brooks ceiling numbers, but gains 2.6, 7th. Gains a half, 11th. Gains 1, 19th. The one that I really want to highlight, just because I just use it as a comparison course, the Honda. Finished third last year. Now, I don't ever expect somebody to repeat a performance of gaining 8 strokes on a green. It just isn't going to happen. But as a straight comparison course, it's very, very comforting to see he just top 5'd this past year with, pretty good iron play, but nothing to the effect of his peaks. So, I mean, he's never been a off the tee, bomber or anything. In fact, that might be, one of his weaker parts of his game. But generally speaking, anytime he's gained strokes on the green, it is a very, very high finish. Even he topped 30 last year at this same tournament, losing strokes on the green. All of this to say is that while, yes, these guys are traditionally mediocre to bad at putting, they have the ability, they show the ability to get hot with the putter. And because putting is so darn important here at Memorial Park, or at least it was last year, and that's all I'm going to be able to go by, I would much rather focus on somebody who is volatile with the putter, who can spike, as opposed to somebody like Denny McCarthy that is just solid on putting. I mean, he'll have his spike rounds, sure, but the approaches aren't like Russell Henley, aren't like Brooks Koepka, and he's much more consistent with I say that. Denny McCarthy's actually done some really good work consistently on the greens. A lot of times when you see guys that are like this, they're the 1.5 steadily, and they might spike once or twice. They'll have a bad week here and there. Denny McCarthy's actually one of the few ones that I have found that it seems like he's pretty darn consistent. And then I come here and look at Honda in third. Now I'm going to have to start considering Denny McCarthy. But the mindset is still the same. I much prefer somebody who's very, very volatile with the putter, that looks like they're bad or field average, as opposed to somebody generally like Denny McCarthy who's just a steady, consistent putter. Chesson Hadley maybe a better example. Well, he's got the volatility as well. Oh my God, 9. Oh. But there again, you see miscut at the Honda. Yeah, so sure these guys can spike every week, but I'm looking for the extreme volatility, like a Brooks, like a Russell Henley. I made a couple of notes here on some guys. Take a look at Russell Henley, Brooks Koepka, Max Homa is that same way. A little bit to a lesser extent, you've got Griot, Aaron Wise, Gary Woodland, Henrik Norlander. These are guys that, generally speaking, their iron play and or off the tee game is good enough to weather a bad putting performance, but when they click and their putter is cooperating on a weekend, that's when you get the extremely high finishes. That's not too far from what I did. Brian, that's not far from what I did. You hit the number on the head that I grabbed. I grabbed Brooks at 28. I felt like that was way too generous on a player like Brooks. Nothing against somebody like Sam Burns, who's playing ridiculously good golf right now, and I'm going to back Sam Burns, DFS and all that stuff. Or who else was there? Cameron Smith was. Cameron Smith, again, great player. I understand the narrative. Putting so very important. He's a very good putter. He's at something 16-1. You're giving me almost double the odds on Brooks. I'm going to have to take Brooks on that. So, but anyway, that's what I wanted to show you all in regards to the putting, that it can be a tad bit misleading, especially at a course where putting is so important. All it takes is somebody to have a very good week with the putter. Whereas if putting is more nominal or isn't quite the contributor to a high finish, then I would much prefer guys who know that that will putt well and have that guarantee. Now, this is certainly a much wider range of outcomes that I'm focusing on here this week. Certainly with the volatility of, Brooks could come out and lose 8 strokes, and the narrative that I'm pushing here is gone to shit. But I would make sure you keep it in the back of your mind, whether you're outright betting or in your DFS, for some of these guys like Brooks, like Russell Henley, Max Homa, Taylor Gooch, Gary Woodland, and such, that these guys' iron game is so good that it generally can weather a bad putting week, generally. But when they do get going with the putter, they're almost unstoppable, or at least they're going to have a top 5, top 10 finish. And especially in DFS, that's what you're looking for. You're wanting the top 5, the top 10, the birdie runs, making the cut and then getting extra points and so on. So that's what I wanted. That's the point I wanted to make on putting. So let's look at a different aspect of this course. I'm going to combine a couple of things here that I didn't do in the mixed condition model. I'm going to add difficult to par. And the reason I'm going to add that is we see here at the historic conditions last year, 3 of the 4 rounds were difficult. The 4th was easy. I don't know what changed, whether they had some rain, whether they intentionally softened it up because the wind didn't pick up. They didn't soften the greens. The fairways were easy to hit, but they were also easy to hit the day before. So I don't know what changed. And if you know, by all means, jump in chat, leave a comment, let me know if you know what happened last year. But 3 of the 4 rounds were difficult. +4 was the cut line last year. So this is going to be a difficult tournament, difficult course. So I'm going to combine difficult and long. And we'll see, at least in the last 6 months, there's only been 2 rounds. So I'm definitely going to have to expand that out. Looks like the most rounds is 13, so I'll cut it down to 12. And let's just take take an overview here of who plays long and difficult courses well. No surprise to me is Patrick Reed. When the course gets tough, when it gets really, really difficult, whether you love him or hate him, he generally plays his best. And look at these tournaments. The Wells Fargo, you wouldn't think is difficult, but this is, where is the Wells Fargo? That's Quail Hollow, I believe. Now I'm curious. Let's Wells Fargo 2021. Quail Hollow. Yep. And Bermuda. Par 71, but Bermuda over 7,400. Scoring difficult. This is a pretty good comparison as well. It didn't come up because it's a par 71, not a par 70. But you look at somebody like Patrick Reed, the Wells Fargo plays well. The Masters plays well. Arnold Palmer is a very difficult tournament. Played at Bay Hill. The Farmers out west. So this seems like it's a Patrick Reed style course when it's long and it's difficult. So the top 10 when it's long and difficult. Patrick Reed, Richie Werenski. Really? I've got to see this. So he played 1 round at the Wells Fargo really, really well. He played the Farmers really well. He played Arnold, and he was pretty good at the API. All right, so Richie Werenski, there's a name for you to kind of jot down and make a note of. He plays long, difficult courses well. But the rest of the top 10, Patrick Reed, Richie Werenski, Cameron Tringali, Charlie Hoffman, Keith Mitchell, your top 5. And then Ryan Palmer, Cam Davis, Luke List, Brian Harmon, and Mark Leishman are your top 10. Again, Werenski kind of surprised me. These others, not necessarily. A lot of the strength of these guys is off the tee. I mean, Ryan Palmer is no young spring chicken, but he can still move it out there. Luke List can move it out there. Brian Harmon's the one short hitter. among this group of 10. But you see here, he's number 1 in short game. So first in around the green, 10th in putting. That's where he makes his hay on these long courses and difficult courses where he's scrambling his pars as opposed to guys maybe birdieing and bogeying. So, so interesting stuff there. I wanted to make sure I combined those two because I didn't in the mixed condition model. So good stuff there. Now I kind of want to see the Quail Hollow comparison. I might have to do that for Wednesday. Or this would be something that I, kind of mentioned in the intro to make sure you sign up for the bonus content. This would absolutely be something that I would be doing, say a Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and would be providing my subscribers that kind of the level of research as I'm doing it. So make sure you get, send out that or send me the email to the address in the description. You're not going to want to miss out. Starting next week when I start doing this bonus material. Let's kind of go through a couple of different pages here. One of the things that I really like on this page is, we can, look at birdies are better, opportunities, such like that. But generally speaking, you're going to be at the top of the leaderboard when you're getting a lot of birdies and you're avoiding your bogeys. Obvious statements are obvious. What I like to do is look at birdies or birdies are better on easy courses. That means who's, just not afraid to go low. They might have a blow-up round, but if they put two, rounds together and make the cut, they're, they can be an anchor of a DFS team or a pretty solid, sportsbook bet. So I like to do the birdies are better on easy, but what I like to do also at the inverse is on these difficult courses, who avoids bogeys? Who can scramble their pars? Who can just make tough pars and keep their score going? And it seems like Fantasy National just doesn't want to cooperate. So I'm going to give that a chance to load. And the reason why I'm using birdies and bogeys on difficult is you'll notice we looked at this last night. You see here, yes, there's a bunch of birdies. But look over here in the bogeys. This is all green. This is all positive in relation to the field. Whereas birdies, you still have a few guys here that are under, field average for birdies. So the guys that were doing the best were avoiding the bogeys as opposed to making the birdies. So that's why, especially on difficult courses, I really like using this bogey avoidance metric. So let's see, on difficult courses, let's expand this out to 36 rounds. If there is 36 rounds. Nope, I lied. There's only 24. So, in the last 24 rounds of difficult courses, or difficult rounds to par, number 1 is Cameron Tringali. So now we've seen him pop twice, playing the long difficult courses well and avoiding bogeys on difficult courses. Tringali, Grace, Kevin Streelman, Russell Knox, Max Homa. Somebody I wanted to highlight for you all, and I'll dig into him in a second. Rest of the top 10, Sung Jae, Chez Reavie, Patrick Reed again, Eric Van Rooyen, and Shane Lowry. Shane Lowry is somebody that I generally like as a player, and it came back to bite me last week because I thought he would play pretty darn well. He didn't. This is kind of more up his alley. When it gets difficult, he generally plays better. Because last week was easy. This week, very difficult. So I kind of like Lowry again, although, I've backed Lowry a couple times and it's, bit me in the ass. So I'm a little gun shy, but this definitely says this should be more akin to Shane Lowry. And it says, look here, he's supposedly a little bit, weaker, less than, field average on putting. His irons have been sharp, sharp. Well, he gained a bunch at the CJ Cup, but was Shane Lowry-like in the rest of the way of the tournament approach off the tee and such. He can get so good that he can still basically top 10 with not a good putting performance. But when he does contribute putting, I'll get off there, contributes putting, and his irons are relatively, I wouldn't say base. I mean, he's more of a, I would say a 2.0. So it's not too far off. 6th at the Memorial. Hell, he loses a stroke on the greens and still 4th at the PGA. Gain, top 10. Gain, top 10. So Shane Lowry is somebody else to kind of take a look at. And like I said, he plays better when it gets difficult. Kind of like a Patrick Reed in that regard. But somebody else I said I was going to highlight for you, Max Homa. You'll notice here, Bermuda's not his favored putting surface, but you would come down here and you'd say, well, he's a really bad putter. At least he's been really bad lately. That's a little bit misleading because Bermuda is fairly okay for him. The Fortinet, that was Bermuda. He wins it. So you'll see a lot of red here. It's very scary. There's a lot of red. He gains, he wins. Gains 6.5, top 10. Gains 5.5, top 10. Gains 8, top 10. He only gains a half in top 22s, and then he gains 4.5 and wins the Genesis. Is it likely that he's going to pop with a putter? No. History has shown that he is more likely to lose strokes than gain strokes. When he does gain strokes, it's a lot. And in a tournament like this, where putting is so important, this is the kind of level of putting that you're going to want and going to need to win. So it's essentially an all or nothing deal with Max Homa. Is he going to gain strokes on the greens? If he is, it's going to be about 1 million of them, and he's going to play extremely, extremely well. If he's not, well, he still has the capability to, he has the game, off the tee, approach. His game is well-rounded enough that he could still make the cut and play fairly well. But when you're looking at sports, outright sportsbook bets, or, anchoring a team on DFS that you are trying to win these big GPPs, this is the kind of level of volatility that you're wanting. Gain 4, top 10, 4.5, win. He only gains a half at Congressional in Florida. Still, essentially top 20, 22nd. So, there you go. Max Homa is another player I wanted to highlight for you all. And it just so happened that he coincided with avoiding bogeys on difficult courses. So there's a couple of things going for Max Homa as well. So I always like using that metric here. And I definitely put that in the mixed condition model. Let's see. Take one more look at something on here. Let's see who... actually, you know what? I want to look at who gives themselves the most opportunities on long courses. Let's just see that. There's only 2 rounds. Let's expand that out to the last 12 months, so the last calendar year. Okay, 23. Who gives themselves the most opportunities? Tom Hoge. Interesting. Let's see where this is. Wells Fargo. He played extremely well at Quail Hollow. Valero Texas Open. Arnold Palmer, which is Bay Hill. Now I got to go look and see what the Texas Open is. What course is this? TPC San Antonio. Okay, so it didn't pop up as a comp course because it's a par 72. But it is Bermuda. It is long. However, the green speeds there are very slow. Very slow. And it's difficult to average as opposed to just being outright difficult. You can see here, Jordan Spieth wins at a score of 18. Carlos Ortiz, winner or the defending champion of the Houston Open here at Memorial Park, won with a score of -13. So this is difficult. But so the best guys, the top 10 of guys who give themselves opportunities on long courses: Tom Hoge, Sung Jae, Charlie Hoffman, Joseph Bramlett, Hank Lebioda, Cam Davis, Kevin Streelman, Milan Agrio, Joaquin Niemann, and Lee Westwood. So there's a little bit of a different look. These guys are good on long courses, but maybe not difficult. You do have a little bit of overlap there. Charlie Hoffman, I think Sung Jae's popped a couple of times in different rankings. So yeah, definitely wanted to take a look at that. Some good stuff there. Let's move on to, we saw last night that it was all just greens and regulation on this tab. Let's see. Yeah, fairways and greens. It was all greens and regulation. There's very little sand at Memorial Park, so we're not going to worry about sand. It didn't matter with dry fairways. You can see a lot of red there. Distance really didn't matter. It was all in this greens and regulation. So greens and regulation, just no filters or anything. Scotty Scheffler, let's rein this in a little bit. I want to do as many rounds in a shorter amount of time. Greens, last 36 rounds. Scotty Scheffler, Mito Pereira, Johnny Vegas, Luke List, Kyle Stanley are the top 5. Sung Jae, Shane Lowry, Jim Harmon, Kramer Hickok, Martin Laird are the top 10 for greens and regulation, just as a baseline in the last 36 months. Last 36 rounds in the past 6 months. Definitely going to want to see who hits greens when it gets difficult. Well, then it changes. 21 rounds. So let's bring it. So in the last 24 rounds on difficult courses, the top greens and regulations players changes. Goes Brandt Snedeker's now number 1. Streelman's still up there. He's second. Shane Lowry's still up there third. But now we're starting to see the cream of the crop. Brooks Koepka, 4th. Aaron Wise, 5th. Seamus Power, 6th. Or tied for 5th. Joaquin Niemann, Luke List, Bill Hawes, and Emiliano Grillo. So you're starting to get a lot of overlap there on greens baseline and greens difficult. And Kyle Stanley, Lebioda, Charlie Hoffman, even with the difficult filter added, are still lurking just outside the top 10. So greens are going to be very, very important this week. That way you can take advantage of your putting. Last thing I kind of want to look at before getting into the mixed condition model that I have made for tonight. I want to keep this on the difficult because this course is difficult. We'll look at the course breakdown here really quickly. Last night we saw that according to last year, the strokes gained par 5 was the most important hole by par you needed to take advantage of. I disagree. At least what we saw looking into it. It was really the par 4s. I mean, look at all this green and high amounts of green. Sorting this, 15th. You got the 2 middling finishes here. But, up to Henrik Norlander, who missed the cut, what is this, 15 or so, 16, are all inside the top 40. And only 3 less of those are in the top 20. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 of the 15 were inside the top 20 in strokes gained par 4. That's some pretty strong correlation right there. So because of that, I wanted to look at par 4s. I'm going to keep the difficult metric on because this course, the most difficult parts of this course, the first hole, long par 4, second most difficult hole. Another long par 4, 7th most difficult. Difficult par 4. Long difficult par 4. Longest most difficult par 4. third most difficult hole, par 4. I mean, this is who's going to play these extremely difficult par 4s well. And that's why I have kept this difficult to par metric on. Let's see who plays the par 4s the best on difficult courses. So your top 10: Brandon Grace, Scotty Scheffler, Brant Snedeker, Ches Reavie, Matthew Wolff are your top 5, followed by Shane Lowry, Francesco Molinari, Patrick Reed, Kevin Streelman, and Joseph Bramlett. So a lot of overlap there. That we've started to see on a few of these metrics that I've been looking at. So that gives you kind of an idea of where I've been and kind of my thought process today as I've been trying to make this mixed condition model. So without trying to leave some amount of time, looking at the clock here, leaving some amount of time for discussion and whatnot, this is the mixed condition model that I have come up with, and I'm still debating on it a little bit. In fact, I know there's a couple of things in here that I'm going to remove for Wednesday. But wanted to see who plays difficult courses well. I wanted to see who plays long courses well. Put each of those at 5%. Off the tee, not sure if it's going to matter a ton. Put it at 5%. Everyone who watches, knows me, knows I prefer iron play. 15%. Around the green, 5%. Again, not sure how much it's going to come into effect. I might remove it. As much as I don't like using putting, it's just a fickle statistic. You can't argue how important it was last year. I've said that even more important than the irons. It's just the way it is here at Houston, or at Memorial Park. 20% of the putting. 10% on difficult courses, avoiding bogeys. 10% at greens. 5% on proximity, 5 on par 3s, 5 on par 5s, and lastly 10% on the par 4s because we saw how important those were. When I did my mixed condition model and sorted it, my rankings as of now, and this will change probably slightly because like I said, I'm thinking about moving some percentages, removing some metrics, changing stuff around, but this will be a pretty good indication. It should not change much between now and Wednesday. Sam Burns is my number 1 player. No surprise. He's playing fantastic golf. He's the favorite of the tournament for good reason. Aaron Wise, again, playing great golf. Those are 1 and 2. Gary Woodland is 3rd. And I like Gary Woodland quite a bit this week. He's somebody else that I was mentioning on the putting scenarios, given everything, staying relatively normal to their baselines. Gary Woodland, gains about a stroke on approach. His off the tee game has kind of been middling. He's traditionally been pretty good. So let's just say maybe 0.2, like here. His around the green game, okay. When he gains on the greens, here he misses the cut, but he was bad off the tee and bad on approach. Gains 3 at the 3M, basically a top 10. Charles Schwab, top 15. Wells Fargo, one of the comp courses. Gains 3.5, approach 3.5, top 5. WC Mexico, he didn't do anything else that week and was still slightly under half for the tournament. Amex played pretty well. Farmers played pretty, he made the cut. Again, it's a very volatile, very risky way to go about it. But I've got a win bet on Woodland. I've got a win bet on Brooks. I've got a win bet on Russell Henley and Max Homa. There's a reason I'm highlighting these guys. It can absolutely blow up in my face. They could all 4 miss the cut because their putting just doesn't cooperate. But if one of them has a week where their putter cooperates, their game is so good, I'm getting odds that I shouldn't on any of those four, especially Brooks at 28. But I'm getting odds that I don't feel I should get on those players. But anyway, let's go back to the rankings here. Top 5, Sam Burns, Aaron Wise, Gary Woodland, Cameron Smith, and Brandon Grace. And then the round out the top 10, Kevin Streelman, Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Tringali, Sung J M, and Seamus Power. Round out what I'll call my initial top 10. This will absolutely be tweaked and modified. I'll be moving some of these percentages around. I'll probably take away the around the green and off the tee, and this is where I'm going to reach out to you, the audience. What do you think? Whether it's in chat or comment below. What are you seeing in this chart here, in this collection of data? Clearly, putting is so very, very important. I mean, take away this 61st. What is this? The top 15 or so? 14? All of them got top 20s. Minus Doc, who didn't chip a fuck, couldn't hit an iron. He was pretty good off the tee, and he made some putts. Other than him, all of these are basically top 20s, or all of them are top 25s, almost all of them are top 20s. Clearly putting's important. Clearly irons are important. A little less so than the putting, but clearly irons are important. 5th, 7th, 15th, couple 11th, 20th. Off the tee. This one kind of, I don't know how I feel about, because this was supposedly one of the least important metrics last year. You still had your number 2, 15, and 7, but you have some guys here that were middling. You had pretty high, missed the cut. To me, this is worthy of a 5% on the data model, but then again, I can see why it wouldn't be. Same with the around the green. Around the green, you had 2 very middling performances, 38th, 38th. Then your winner sandwiched in between. 2 very good performances, miscut, middling, a little better, good performance, middling, very good performances. So, for those of you watching live, in chat, what are you thinking? What do you see? If you're not watching live, comment below. What do you see? What do you think? Does off the tee, based again just on last year, is this worthy of a 5% inclusion in the data model? Is around the green worth 5% in a data model? Right now I have them in there. I'm going back and forth on it. If I take these out, I can certainly move percentages around on things that I think will play. I mean, we saw how important the par 4s were. Maybe that needs to go up to 15%. So let me know what you think. Because I'm kind of torn on it, to be honest with you. Generally, these kind of statistical models, the mixed condition model, I build with a certain level of confidence and then tweak it, throughout the week. This is one of the first ones I've debated on. Not sure which metrics, how much to put in each metric. So, again, let me know what you all are thinking. So, with that, I think that's going to be the end of the Data Dive show. Let's come back to here, just in a regular strokes gained, 36 rounds, so you all can see that just at the end of the show. But again, thanks for tuning in. Really want to hear from you all. Like I said, comment below what you're thinking. Make sure you reach out to me, social media, the email that I have put in the description. You're not going to want to miss this bonus content starting next week. I'll be having, my own tournament fact sheets with, my best sportsbook bets, my value plays, DFS strategies, and all that stuff. And then I'll have some other exclusive, information like really digging into these comparison courses, looking into the crossover success. That reminds me, I did promise to show. So let me bring this up. I'm gonna transition from that. Let me bring this out. I did promise I would show you all this, so I will stick to my promise. This is a quick little spreadsheet that I've kind of built on. This is looking at the Honda, so the big comparison course, the par 70 long Bermuda greens from 2018 to 2021. This is your strokes gained total, and this is sorted by strokes gained total. So you got total, off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting, and combined with how they did at the Houston last year. So something that immediately jumps off the page, like Russell Henley plays the Honda very well, and he had a pretty good showing at Houston last year. Ryan Poulter, so these guys clearly didn't play last year at Houston Open. Here's Woodland, somebody I've highlighted. Aaron Wise, who's been playing really good golf. Sung Jae. Sung Jae's the number one player at the Honda the past 4 years. Luke List. There's Lowry. There's Brooks. I mean, look at Brooks here. He tied for 5th last year at the Houston, and he's 18th strokes gained total at the Honda. That's pretty good correlation there. But then you have some others here like Luke List. Missed the cut at Houston, but 15th at the Honda. Now I did look into Luke List. He missed the cut by 1 shot, so he was +5. Like Sam Ryder, I was just looking at Luke List for a comparison's sake. I don't know anyone else specifically. Sam Ryder. Wyndham Clark, 3rd at the Honda, but missed the cut at Houston. Now, was it a bad tournament? Or does he not like Memorial Park? I don't know. Something that is, promising. Brooks, 6th and 5th. Sepp Straka, 20th and 5th. Taylor Gooch, 27th and 4th. Mackenzie Hughes, 30th and 7th. So I did want to make sure I looked at this to see if there were similarities. There are a few. I've been highlighting a few here. Brooks and so on. There are certainly some negative correlation. Wyndham Clark and Sam Ryder, Luke List. If we come down to the opposite end of the spectrum, well, these guys didn't play it. Like Martin Trainer, missed the cut and 101st. Seamus is interesting. I've got him ranked so high on my data model, but he doesn't play Honda very well. Sung Kang, Tom Hoagie, we talked about him a little bit. Who else have we talked about a little bit that might be down here? Bramlett popped on a few models. He doesn't play the Honda very well. Snedeker. Weird that Ortiz wins. He doesn't play the Honda well. So, again, differences in courses, differences in style of play. Who knows? But it's always good to just kind of check who plays well on these comparison courses, and to line up maybe things that you can gravitate towards and see what plays at both courses to determine your the data that you want to focus on. What's the biggest correlations and such. So hopefully that helped. Again, I'm going to wrap this up tonight. Make sure there's no nothing else on chat. But thanks for tuning in. I'll see you Wednesday night at the Data Dive show. But again, I can't stress it enough. Comment below. What are you thinking about in this mixed condition model? Reach out to me on social media, in the email. Make sure you sign up for the bonus content next week. With that, for any bets that you have made so far at the Houston Open, for any bets that you're going to make at the Houston Open, and until I see you Wednesday night, may all your bets be profitable.